So wonderful to see so many familiar faces all joining live, and really, really glad to be here with you. If you want to have a quick hello in the chat and just maybe say where you're calling in from today, that's much appreciated. I see Austin, Texas, Wales, wonderful, welcome. So we're really happy to have John Kabat-Zinn with us this hour to look at Ukraine and the future of the world is the title of this session. And John and I were just talking ahead of time about how pertinent that title seems to be and relevant that title seems to be, because there's a situation that's going on that's both about Ukraine and about Russia. And there's also this larger momentum that's happening globally in terms of what repercussions this event could have on all of us. And that there's a possibility to really reimagine and revision what this world could be as we explore kind of the next chapter of our planet. And one of the things as an American that I feel very strongly that the U.S. definitely has its issues and its problems, and it's not that the U.S. should be out policing the world or that the U.S. should be the one that everyone tries to emulate. At the same time, in this situation, we clearly see that there's an aggressor and that there is a country that's fighting for its independence, and that there's aspects of democracy and freedom that are just should be lived within every country. And we know that there might be lots of different feelings about this, even different perspectives about this. And we're here to provide an open forum and a chance for all of us to both learn more, but also reflect on our own particular part in this dance, because the external world is just a reflection of the internal world. And so while there's something that's happening out there, there's also something that we need to discover inside ourselves as we kind of co-create a new chapter of our world. So for the first 30 minutes, John is going to lead us and guide us. At 30 minutes after the hour, Shelley Tegelski, who's a friend of ours who runs the Pandemic of Love, is actually at the Ukraine-Poland border, and she's going to jump in just to give a bit of an update from the world there at the border. I think she's right at the Ukraine-Poland border, but she's going to kind of just let us know what things are happening in that part of the world live. And then if you want to stay on, we'll take this for an hour. And if you want to stay on for another 30 minutes, we plan to go for about an hour and a half. So sorry to those if you have something scheduled and you need to leave, of course, leave whenever you want. But we'll be going for about an hour and a half today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to John. I think probably most of you know John, so I don't think he needs an introduction, but just want to welcome you, John, and thank you so much for taking the time for this today.
Thanks, Soren. Well, and thank you and Annie for creating the possibility of us all gathering together in this way. And as I scan through the thumbnails, it's obvious that a lot of us know each other from having been on Zoom in one way or another before. And we really are finding ourselves in an extraordinary situation that no one ever, I think, imagined would be happening in 2022, right on the heels of this horrific pandemic that is still ongoing and is, very difficult to navigate sensibly and to know what's going on there. And now we have this inflammation, this inflammation of a country in flames. And it's contagious because probably your mind and your heart is inflamed as well, or being singed or burned, even as people in Ukraine are being bombed and burned and harmed in every conceivable way in front of our very eyes. And now we have, our first real war on social media being conducted on social media, and as well as in the physical world. And how are we to hold this? So the beauty of meditative awareness is that it is up to the task of turning towards whatever it is that is most calling of our hearts and of our attention at any particular moment. And so before we go into sort of any kind of a talk or dialogue, let's just listen, so to speak, to what's on our own minds, or even better, what's in our own hearts and how it feels in the body right in this moment, by settling, by just dropping into this moment, to this body sitting here. And feel free, as I see you doing, to arrange yourself so that to whatever degree possible, you're actually embodying what brought you to tune into this program in the first place. And it's not ho hum, now we're going to meditate or anything like that, where you've already, in some sense, dismissed it through your own sort of condensation of thought or expectation. But instead, we simply adopt, as a gesture of compassion, inwardly and outwardly, an attitude of dignity in our own carriage of the body. So sitting as best you can, if you're sitting in a posture that embodies everything that brought you here, everything that moves in your heart. And just feel how it is as you put the welcome mat out for a sense of the body as a whole sitting here, including the envelope of the skin, the contact of the body with the seat or the floor. And the wonder of how the body drinks in the air, bathes in the air and drinks it in. And offers it back out. And in the process, mysteriously maintains its own life. Something so simple, so beautiful, so insanely metabolically complex, right down to the molecular and even atomic and certainly cellular level. Earth receptors in the lungs and the airway. The extraordinariness of the world keeping us breathing somehow. And we can actually open to it and remind ourselves that it's not forever. And the blessing, the incredible good fortune of being able to even take one breath in with ease and one breath out with ease. And dwell in the knowing, the feeling, the sensing, underneath my words and your thoughts and any thoughts, in a kind of silent presencing that's never not here. And in this awareness, letting arise and apprehending whatever it is that arises at this particular moment in your experience. And a lot of it, no doubt, will be images from Ukraine and all of the emotion that arises from having, in some sense, become a bystander to murder on a massive scale, to destruction on an unthinkable scale. For no reason. For no reason that could in any way, shape, or form justify the amount of killing and destruction and generation of millions and millions of refugees, children, separation of families. And we're capable of holding it all in a way that doesn't actually subtract from our equanimity or our sanity or our compassion, but actually humanizes it, enhances it. And so letting the silence simply embrace whatever's arising and being the knowing of whatever is arising. In other words, the holding it all in awareness, including all the emotions and all the not knowing. The confusion, the fear, the trauma, everything. And letting the awareness include a sense that at this very moment, as I check my screen, there are 692 other screens open. Many of those screens have more than one person. Some have children, which is a kind of real reflection of the fact that we're in this together, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. But all humanity is in this together. And in breathing together in this way, we're actually, in a certain way, conspiring in the best of senses. Breathing together as a manifestation of seeing how we can contribute to the attenuation of the horror, the attenuation of the pain and the suffering and the rupture, the trauma and the hugeness of what the world is actually facing, of which this is simply a symptom, although at the moment an extremely inflamed and horrific one. And noticing that your awareness can hold this all and experiment with holding it with loving kindness and a degree of equanimity, even within the pain. And I'm guessing that there is also some place within the awareness, a strong intentionality, a strong impulse to be of some use, to let some kind of appropriate action that's of some use come out of our being together, our falling awake in this moment. And so just holding that impulse as well, without forcing, without contrivance, without any doing, but just embodied wakefulness, participating in a radical act of humanity, just gathering together like this, a radical act of bearing witness, just gathering like this. A radical act of intentionality to make a difference in the midst of this horrific and sorry state of affairs that no one wanted. So letting the air that surrounds the body and the breath that's moving in and out of the body just bathe, move through the present moment, connecting us to what's real right here and right now, wherever we are. Now, in whatever way you care to, let's hold the entirety of Ukraine or any particular person or persons that you might want to feature. Just holding the entirety of Ukraine in your heart. And to the degree that you find it congenial and possible, just beaming out of your belly and out of your chest and out of your back and out of your head and out of the entirety of your body, beaming loving kindness, beaming a sense of compassion, beaming a sense of being with, of affirming the humanity of all of the people who are suffering the most and standing the closest to the wreckage and affirming their deepest and highest values for sovereignty, for liberation, for freedom to live in peace. And letting whatever peace you may contact in your own heart, in your own being, radiate in all directions. And pour out in all directions for the benefit of all parties, all sides, all the people who have been most harmed, all the refugees, all the wonderful people who are taking in the refugees. Really, when you come right down to it, the entire world is all ordinary people are, in some sense, galvanizing this kind of compassion, this kind of recognition of suffering that we can't magically make better or shut off, but that we can in some way or other, a million different ways, potentially, or a billion different ways, contribute to a profound embracing of the principles in this conflict wherever they are, and holding them in our hearts with compassion and the intention that they find their way to prevail, to live with dignity and freedom without fear of harm. So in your own way, however that might be for you, just holding that intention in your chest, in your heart, in your belly, and letting it radiate to the world. And then as we slowly take another in-breath and out-breath, seeing if we might invite one or another intention to arise that just personally, for you, wherever you are on this planet, might contribute in some way or other to the attenuating and the healing of these wounds in the immediacy of this moment. And stretching out for here, stretching out from here, from this moment. And let's keep in mind that there are so many places on the planet now that are experiencing inflammation of one kind or another, injustice of one kind or another. And what the world is really crying out for is for all of us to wake up and recognize that every single human being and every single being on this planet is a part of a larger whole. That we're all cells in some sense of the one body politic of humanity and the planet. And we need to take care of every single cell to whatever degree possible. Because if some degree of suffering is unfortunately a universal part of the human condition, to at least an equal degree, and I would say to a far greater degree, is the potential for us to actually transform that suffering into love. But it will take all of us, every single one of us. And at this moment of huge uncertainty on the planet, with the climate crisis and everything else, so nobody needed Ukraine, with the possible exception of one or two people. And when you're ready, slowly allowing your eyes to, or inviting your eyes to open if they've been closed. And as I do it, I notice that there are other faces on my screen from all over. And I really very deeply feel that whatever impulse that brought us together today, this is happening everywhere on the planet. That this, if this is not the wake-up call that we need to finally, once and for all, put this kind of atrocity to rest everywhere, not just in Ukraine, but everywhere in the human heart. I don't think the prognosis for humanity is going to be all that pleasant going forward. Because what we are seeing in Ukraine now has happened all over the world in other places. I won't name them, but you can probably, in your own mind, if you're old enough, remember all sorts of places and all sorts of aggressors and all sorts of rationales for the aggression when it's your people and it's on your side. And this is what we have to, in some sense, name and heal. If not once and for all, at least to tilt things in a direction where the politics and the legality, the international justice and our laws in individual countries actually are reconfigured to make this kind of a thing almost impossible, because it will be illegal. So I will stop here. Those of you who've sat with me before know that sometimes I may talk like this during a meditation, and the invitation really is to drop underneath the words that the meditations, a lot of people feel, and of course it's very true, that a silence is best. The lion's roar, so to speak, of silence. But in a time like this, sometimes I feel like bearing witness in silence is incredibly powerful. And we need to do that and also reflect in some deep way, using our our various superpowers, including the superpower of thought and speech, to take a seat and take a stand and contribute to whatever's possible in this one moment we call now, embedded in a future we don't know, but in the past that takes a lot of reconciling. So I'll stop here and turn it back over to Soren. I believe that our colleague Shelley Tagilsky is going to tune in about this time and give us like a direct connection, so to speak, to the Ukrainian-Polish border and the refugees and her attempts to galvanize her community and all of us in some sense to contribute to mitigating the suffering in whatever ways is possible in the midst of this insanity. So over to you, Soren.
Thanks. Yeah, I think Shelley is here and I am looking for her. Hey, Shelley. Let's see.
Hi.
All right.
Where are you, Shelley? We're looking.
I'm here.
Oh.
Kelly, can you raise your hand and then you'll pop to the front of
Right here. Raising my hand.
There you are.
Oh,
Yes.
you see me?
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley. There we are.
Hey. Hi, everyone. I just got back to the hotel in Jajal. We're in about an hour away from Medeka, where I spent the day today. I sent Soren some videos actually from the border. And my God, I'm just like landing, to be honest with you, in terms of like processing what I've seen. And I've been to refugee camps. I've been to, Lesbos. I've been to Aida refugee camp. I've been to places where there are many migrants moving. And I have to tell you that I've never seen a volume of people. And it struck me so much because besides the fact that if you can imagine that you're watching a concert at Madison Square Garden that is emptying every 30 minutes. And if you could wrap your head around that, and you could wrap your head around the fact that people are leaving their homes and they may never return again, like lives, generations, everything that they own in a suitcase, in bags, tattered bags that they've been carrying for days. But the one thing that really just struck me today, that caused me to have a moment of great pause and just start to weep, is the fact that besides maybe a few elderly men, I didn't see any men crossing the border. It was all women and children. And you could just really see this mixture of relief and great sadness and this great burden that they're carrying across the border with them. And in the middle of this refugee, intake area at the border, there was a piano. Somebody actually pushed a grand piano into the center of this really chaotic scene. And you could hear the music from wherever you are. And I was just drawn to this man that was playing the piano, and he was playing John Lennon's Imagine. And it was really in that moment when I was able to just stop and listen and tune in, tune into the sounds, tune into the music, but then really tune into my heart. That I just broke down and wept. And so, I want to share with everyone here. And this is really, I think what my entire life has led to, and where I keep kind of coming back to again and again, is that yes, we have to do the inner work. We should never skip over the inner. But we have to do it with the purpose of connecting to the outer world, of showing up and doing the work in the outer world. We can't just do the inner work and stay there. And I know that things can seem really daunting. You may think to yourself that, I'm one person, what could I do? And I want to tell you that absolutely you could do something. Every little bit helps so much more than you even can imagine. And I love the Buddhist proverb, tend to the area of the garden that you can reach. Tend to the area of the garden that you can reach. If every single person here on this call, if every person on this planet just made sure that everybody that is surrounding them, everybody in their circle of influence has enough, is doing well, is good, the impact of that, the ripple effect of that will shift from a ripple to a wave to a tsunami. And so I don't want you to doubt that there are so many things you could do when it comes to even this crisis here. And I know there are many crises happening simultaneously around the world. But some tangible ways that you can help are, right now we're in the midst of creating, not actually even creating, we're just replicating an app. For example, I'm just going to give you a few examples of ways that you might be able to help. If you speak Polish, Ukrainian, or Russian, and you're willing to help us translate trauma-informed content, that's one way you can help. If you are a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher that speaks either one of those languages, we need your help. You can help record content. If you are good at making Amazon wish lists, we have a list that's literally coming from inside of Ukraine every day, from towns, from people who are stuck there. And you can make an Amazon wish list and put it on your socials, share it with your family and friends, your coworkers. Even if they just buy one thing, even if a person buys one toothbrush, for example, that helps. So you may think that by doing that one little thing, it's insignificant, but it's not. It's very significant. Share with Soren some additional resources and ways that you can help. And I'll continue to share as well on my socials and my stories as I'm seeing things in real time. I'm here on a mission with Pandemic of Love, which is an organization that I started. We've partnered with Global Empowerment Mission. So encourage you to go to globalempowermentmission.org. Every day we're updating information. And if you want to start a wish list or you're interested in being a translator, you can go to Pandemic of Love or send an email to pandemicoflove@gmail.com. pandemicoflove@gmail.com. And we've got thousands of volunteers that are responding right away to emails. But I just, I think it was important for me to share and encourage you all to rise up, and to, yes, understand that matters of the heart is the only solution, really. Getting to the heart, doing the inner work is the only way that this world is going to change, because all of these problems, as Jack Kornfield says, are rooted in matters of the heart, right? No technology, no bioscience, no sending people to Mars. None of that is going to change things like war and racism and systemic injustice. It all is rooted here. And that's where it's going to change. But it's also going to change if we dig deep in here and rise up and do something. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shelley. It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Stay safe and keep on keeping on with the amazing work that you're doing. In some sense, you're representing all of us by being over there, and just keep it coming, because what you're doing is the embodiment of everything that Rising Up and your book and what it's pointing to are really about.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Joel.
Shelley. And
thank you, guys.
I think I can actually show this video that you just sent me this morning. So let's see if we can watch this for one moment. Let's see. All right, thank you so much, Shelley. I think we'll pass it back to you, John.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, be well. Thank you.
Bye for now, unless you're welcome to stay, of course. But you've got much more important things to do. Yeah, so I think probably the most important thing that we could do at this particular moment is to just open it up for conversation, for dialogue, for expressing what's in your heart. And let me invite everybody, whether you're speaking or whether you're listening, to give it 100% of your attention, and really let us all feel what's being said, what's being pointed to, and to recognize the privilege and the wonder of being safe ourselves at this particular moment in time, not being bombed or rocketed or strafed, and having our children and our families be safe. And just let's see where this goes. We'll go for, we've got plenty of time. So,
Great.
take your time, and please say where you're calling from when you do raise your hand. And
Yes, if you go to under reactions, there's a raise hand button, and then we can see you and grab you in, and then you can also use the comments. But it looks like Annie, do you want to grab whoever you see?
Sure. How about Anne Marie? Hi. Where are you calling from? And
Let's see. We need to ask her.
you?
Then did you? Let's see.
There we go.
People can unmute themselves, I don't think, at this point.
There we go.
All right, there
Thank
go.
you. Now I can.
Thank you.
Hi, John. Hi, Soren. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm Anne Marie. I'm calling from St. Louis, Missouri. And I've been on many different meditations with you, John, and I caught part of this today. And the reason I wanted to speak today and to thank you is to know that there is a place to come in our heart and with one another. There is a solution to deal with these problems, and the examples that were given to us just moments ago. And you know, I live in St. Louis, and you know, family coming from the areas of Poland and Bohemia, you know, years ago. But I'm struck today when my 5-year-old, who's a kindergartner, told me that his former best friend told him that when he gets older, he wants to kill him. And I know kids can just say things, but with everything going on in the world, and then to hear an area where I would think he would be safe at school and with a friend, that how do I speak to a 5-year-old? We say prayers at dinner for the world, for Ukraine. You know, I don't have the news on with my 5-year-old, but they're aware and they pick up on things.
Yeah,
so to hear that, just how do we speak to our children, and how do we help them to how do we walk through this with them to feel safe, and what difference we can make in our garden with our children.
Well, let me just sort of take in first the enormity of that schoolyard encounter. And all parents will recognize that happens. We didn't need Ukraine for that to happen. It just happens. So it takes a long time to grow a human being, a full human being. And that's what the practice is really all about, are there enough moments in a lifetime, no matter how long that lifetime lasts, to actually instantiate fully in your true self, in your true nature. And of course, the children are already in their true nature, and they're just picking up on stuff, you know, or dealing with their whatever genetic inheritance is associated with aggression or grasping or all of those kinds of things. So it takes a long time to civilize a human being. In my case, I feel like, you know, this is 77 years and I'm barely scratching the surface. So it's in some sense non-trivial. I think the most important thing when it comes to children is that they know a lot about how to be from watching you and feeling how you be, much more than any stories you're going to tell them about how to be. So you have to be in it for the kind of long haul, because these little things will happen. They're little inflammations, and we deal with them as best we can in the moment. But over time, as we live our values, our children actually, you know, sort of grok them, if you accept that way of speaking, in a way that is also infectious. It's like, you know, this is like the good infection, you know, the good transmission of love and caring and kindness, and it's in how we be far more than it is rules we, you know, tell kids, or moralizing stories and those kinds of things. but everybody will, thread that needle differently. And in the end, maybe our kids will tell us that none of it was actually good enough. And, but that will be okay too.
Thank you so much, John. I've read your parenting book with your wife and met you at University of Missouri, Columbia years ago.
Oh, I
and
remember
sat
that.
with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Sat
In the
with you.
theater, right?
Yes. So thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure.
And be
Thank you
well.
all. Be well. Thank you.
Louise, are you available? I see a hand and not a face. Are you there? There you are. Can you unmute? Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can barely see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, let me put the light on. I'm in the car. Sorry, I'm from the United Kingdom.
Are you driving?
No, I've just stopped.
Good.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm safe. Don't worry. Bear with me. My daughter's trying to call on the other line. I tell you what, would you like to answer someone else and then I'll let you know as soon as I've spoken to her and I'm free?
Sure.
Fabulous.
We're very flexible about the present moment. So answer your
Oh,
daughter
okay.
and come back
Um,
and come back.
I'd love to. I have something very empowering to talk to you all about.
Love to hear it.
Okay, I'll speak to you in a moment.
All right, why don't we move on to Lewis?
Hello, I'm calling from Berkeley, California, and I just want to thank you, John, for, I know every amazing meditation is amazing, but I don't think I've ever been more grateful than to feel the way you offered us an invitation from your heart and your soul to not only see and feel all the pain in Ukraine that we've seen on video and we can imagine, but how well you reminded me, and I'm sure all of us, of the others around the world that we've seen, even without mentioning all of them. And given our age or not, whether it was December 7th, 41 or 9/11, or the knee on George Floyd's neck, or whatever we've seen or experienced is all the same kind of violation of peace and love and oneness. And that this is a wake-up call, not just for 700 of us, but for 7 trillion of us, at least minus one, who is absolutely getting what we need to get to recognize we are all one. And not just human one, but for those who can handle it, our souls all come from the same source and then land in the DNA in which we spend these lives. And if we can feel that we are one at the soul level and then value the diversity we each bring in our own life experiences and gifts to one another, instead of violating one another, then we can all be one and grow. And I just thank you for reminding me and all of us of that. I have nothing else to share except incredible gratitude for how you've opened all of us. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You just very articulately expressed the real curriculum of the species, the real, sort of opportunity that we have on this planet Earth. And we need to tend it with a level of intentionality and responsibility and wisdom far beyond what we've been doing up to now.
Absolutely.
And the stakes are just getting higher and higher and higher.
And we're all given each different crises through which to get it. Some of us many. And as a lucky survivor who wasn't able to breathe for 10 days under the ventilator and who died twice, they brought me back. I now want to tell Stewart and Sting to redo their song, because every breath I take, I have the gratitude you helped us have this morning with every breath we take. Those are my words. Let's hear from the next.
Thank you so much, Louis.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Louis. Thank you. Mary, could you unmute yourself?
Hi. I'm a fairly new meditation leader, leading a group of people who are fairly new to meditation, and we are doing metta. And of course, you have your stages that the traditional teaching goes through, where you start with somebody who's easy to send loving kindness to, and then somebody who maybe not quite so easy. And I was describing to them, that eventually you'd get to the point where you would be practicing sending loving kindness to an enemy, which is the traditional way that term was used. And of course, we practiced it. We did a session on meditating for all the beings suffering because of the war in Ukraine, and trying to make it as broad as possible, including like the Russian soldiers and the people who are taking in the refugees, etc. But of course, one person, when she was kind of reporting on herself, she said, she could feel that she was having compassion for the people of Russia. And we know that they're suffering in a sense that they're in an information vacuum. But then she says, but I just can't do it for Putin. And she was kind of kicking herself about it. And I said, that's perfectly normal, because that would be like the highest rung on the ladder that you would try to send loving kindness to. But I wonder, he is one person that a lot of this is all focused on. And do you have any insight into how to deal with that? What we could do to help that situation? Because a lot of people, when they think about Putin, they just want to kill him or have our government kill him, assassination or something like that. And I just wonder your insight on that, if you have any. And if
Thank you for framing this whole thing in that way. There's no question that Putin and Donald Trump and Xi Jinping and all of the people around each one of those leaders, they were all born out of women's bodies. They are all human. They all had childhoods. And at a certain point, they went in a particular direction. It's a huge mystery, I think, how this happens, because they certainly weren't born, to be as, create as much destruction as possible. So it is a giant mystery of how that happens. But as the Buddhists like to say, greed, hatred, and delusion, whatever words you want to use to describe those three, they don't just characterize Putin and Trump and other leaders in different countries, right? They actually are pretty universal. And until you can face your own greed and hatred and total delusion and illusion, so that just ignorance, it's very hard to point the finger in any kind of absolute way at another person. So while there's this mystery of how some people, in some sense, wind up accumulating levels of power that turn toxic because the mind itself is somehow turned toxic, that's a huge mystery. The real question is how to actually create societies where that is recognized early on and is made illegal. You can't go down that road. You can't accumulate that much power. Now, that doesn't mean people won't try illegal methods to, sort of overthrow governments and everything else. This is the story of humanity. But what I think has not been tried on this planet is to actually take the word dharma, which means in some sense, it's like the Tao, it's the way things are, the lawfulness of reality. But it means lawfulness in a certain way. And then to use that as a foundation for fine-tuning our secular laws, our national laws and so forth, our international laws, so that those kinds of tendencies are recognized and prevented from metastasizing early on. Because we're not going to immediately just across the board change human nature, but we can develop laws that, you could say that in many ways, all the wrong people are in jail nowadays and the right people are not in jail. I mean, so we need to, in some sense, arrest or stop any impulse that leads to that level of harm, damage, and sheer delusions of grandeur, delusions of power, delusions of, sort of, I guess, that there's no karmic price to be paid for that level of murderous destruction. God knows what's going on in the minds of anybody, never mind the minds of leaders of some sort or other. But we need to, in some sense, I would say, take the loving kindness practice that you were suggesting and let it radiate in all directions without being attached to a particular outcome.
Right.
And there is no telling. Putin's not going to live forever. The law of impermanence is like, there's no telling. We don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment. Very unusual, very strange things can happen. Zelensky said today, we may already be in World War III. We don't know how these things happen, or, you don't know until you know, because it's all like connected. But we need to do whatever it is that we can to tilt things in the direction of exactly what you were saying, inclining the mind towards beneficence, loving kindness, and including yourself in it as well, because a lot of the time that outward aggression is really based on not feeling a deep at homeness in oneself. Interestingly, in terms of Russia, because this is not the Russian people at all, and we can see people risking 15 years in jail to get behind television announcers and put up protest signs and everything. But there are thousands and thousands of people doing that in Russia, and they're not getting, most Russians are not getting the story from, except Putin's propaganda. And what Masha Gessen, who is a Russian journalist now in New York City because she had to leave Russia last week, said, which I heard her say yesterday, is instability of thought is a characteristic of Russian propaganda. Instability of thought. Well, we mindfulness folks, we know something about thinking and the natural instability of thought. When that is capitalized on to actually create confusion and to create, these false narratives that people believe, because that's the only narrative they ever hear. And we've seen that in this country in the past 4 or 5 years, like nobody's business, but it's gone on forever with McCarthy and all sorts of things. I mean, this is not a modern problem. Then loving kindness and compassion really have to be coupled with wisdom, as they say, 2 wings, 1 bird. Okay. So without wisdom, loving kindness is just kind of like ineffectual in a certain way. We have to bring it to bear in such a way that while we're not attached to the outcome, the strong intentionality is to create structures that will prevent unthinkable levels of damage. And that means we have to think about them. So unthinkable levels of damage require us to really hone our capacity for thinking ahead and learning from history, and then establishing laws that will optimize our future.
Thank you, Mary.
For all beings.
Thank you. Thank you
Right.
so much.
Thank you.
Let's see. And I know there's lots of hand raised. So where do you want to? I know.
Lori Grossman.
Hi, Lori.
Oh, John, thank you. Been waiting for this to hear you because I've learned so much from you over the years. And I am almost afraid to say this because I was an anti-nuclear activist arrested for weapons at Livermore. And I have in my head, obviously, I mean, he's threatened nuclear war. And I'm just sort of not allowing myself to go there because of what it means.
Yeah.
And yet, when you just said the unthinkable levels of damage, I'm just wondering if you have any wisdom about what to do with that. I mean, it's kind of like, I'm not even going there. I've heard it. I'm like, it's putting it in a compartment away. And I'm not sure if that's the wise thing to do or if you have any recommendations. And thank you for everything.
I think you have to stay as close as possible, and all of us, to our own heart and where we know sanity lies. Okay? So don't go to places in your mind that are driven and riven by fear and imagination. We may or may not be on the precipice. I mean, but it's in play. The talk about it is in play. It's unthinkable that, for no reason we would have nuclear exchanges now because Putin just decided that that's what he wants. So we have to actually work. And I think people are trying to do that on the diplomatic level, where we're dealing with a lunatic, a total lunatic with nuclear weapons. So in terms of your own mind, you have to actually trust that every worst case scenario that your mind will come up with, that's just the mind doing its thing, and stay in the present moment as best you can. Keep coming back to equilibrium and don't go there. Okay. In the same way as I know Jack Kornfield, and I remember decades ago, Jack Kornfield saying, don't go, there's certain neighborhoods, don't go there at night if you don't feel comfortable. Okay. Just don't go there.
So it's wise to not go there because I have.
Yes, that is wisdom, to not go there and to recognize where the there is, because, we're all walking the knife edge, so to speak, moment by moment between sanity and insanity. We don't understand what it really takes to be so robustly sane that we're, it's impossible to, disrupt our equanimity.
So I don't have to open the welcome
and our
mat.
compassion. You don't have to open those doors. Don't go there.
Okay, the welcome mat does not have to come for Putin's insanity.
Exactly. And you can every time you see your mind tending in that direction, just write yourself a little restraining order. Put a sign up on the mirror or on the door, the refrigerator. Don't go where the mind wants to go. Stay with the openness of your heart and the boundless spaciousness of awareness itself.
Thank you.
And then what will unfold, because none of us are smart enough to actually predict the future. So, but the mind will do it anyway and drive us insane. You don't want to do that. None of us do. And all of us are capable of it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for your answer. That makes me feel so much better.
Okay.
I wondered, I haven't put down the welcome mat for it, and I'm not gonna. Thanks,
Thank
dear
you.
advice.
All right.
Thank you, Lori. And I'm going to bring in Katya.
Hi. Hi, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm connected from Paris. I live in Paris, and I'm Russian. I'm very nervous. I'm sorry for if my thoughts go all the way around.
Take your time and don't worry. It's absolutely fine to
Sure.
be nervous.
I know.
And welcome.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
I mean, my world collapsed on the 24th of February, as for a lot of my friends and family, and we've got a lot of Russians. I've got family in Ukraine as well, and friends and families, their families and parents. And I just wanted to, I don't want to drive attention out from Ukraine and Ukrainian people at all, because that's where the tragedy, real tragedy is. But I know, and what I feel is a lot of guilt and responsibility, which is really a big burden in our lives now. And I just wanted to ask you how to really deal with it, but probably do it a bit wider. A question about how about the burden of not doing enough, because it's the 21st day now and we are not stopping this. This is going on. This tragedy is going on. The war is going on. So what about the guilt and the burden of not doing enough? For example, Shelley was naming the actions and things all of us can do, and we try to do them, some of that, or what we can do in our garden. But I really feel that I'm not doing enough. It's probably because of this being Russian and the guilt that goes with it. I know that, and people that surround me, they're marvelous, and we have a lot of support, and people really separate Putin and Russian people who are against it. And as you mentioned, a lot of Russian people do not dare coming out because of the risks and yeah, the risks of prison or being held or anything. But it doesn't change anything. And yeah, what about that? Thank you.
Well, first of all, welcome and thank you. It's just a blessing to have you join us. And I think you're experiencing, or you might recognize that, you're Russian, but you're also human. And so you're by birth, you're de facto a part of this community, this particular Zoom call even. I mean, whatever the impulses were that brought you to join today, they're beautiful. It's a radical act on your part, just as the meditation is a radical act of love and sanity. And we need everybody on the planet. We need all hands on deck, as we like to say in English. And so the more Russians that, whether they leave or don't leave the country, can bear witness to what is going on. Just the fact that you can speak your truth, because in Russia, you can't speak your truth always or in certain circumstances. There's no telling where the tipping point of that is. Putin's not forever. The Russian regime is not forever. There have been so many times at which, new possibilities might emerge. And so we have to maintain optimism in a certain way with all the suffering and all the horror. There's also incredible beauty. There's incredible beauty and wisdom and compassion in Russian culture. And that can't be suppressed. It's not possible to suppress it forever. And so we may be at a moment where Russians, in some sense, can contribute more than anybody else on the planet to recognizing their own suffering, their own imprisonment in a certain set of lies and laws that have actually created poverty for huge amounts of the Russian society and wealth for an incredibly small number of people. Unimaginable wealth, excuse me. So again, I would say that your being here is really emblematical of something very beautiful. I am very sorry that you had to leave your country at this particular moment.
Oh, I live here since 20 years, so no, I didn't leave my country. My
Oh,
parents
okay.
are
You
still
didn't leave
there,
last
but
week.
I'm fine. I'm safe, and I'm completely
Okay.
fine.
But whether you left 20 years ago or you're leaving now, what the sense that you're not doing enough? Well, trust it. You know, maybe you can do more. Maybe there are things that you can do. I mean, that nobody else has thought about. And it doesn't have to be a big something. Tiny little somethings actually change the world, especially when more and more and more of us engage in that kind of a way, to just contribute beyond what we thought we could, in just the way that Shelley is talking about. And I was on a call the other day with hundreds of MBSR teachers from around the world, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And one of them was a woman from Russia. And two of them were MBSR teachers from Ukraine. And it was unbelievably poignant. And the woman from Russia said that her father was Ukrainian and her mother is Russian. So here we have it, the sort of full catastrophe of the human condition. And yet the practice is in some sense everywhere. And we need to in some sense, imagine, just like the John Lennon song that was being played at the train station, imagine what human beings are capable of when we set our minds to it. And we don't have to be attached to a timetable, because we can't immediately stop what's happening now. We can't immediately dethrone Putin. But what Putin has set in motion is going to dethrone Putin ultimately anyway, because his own mind was the problem to begin with. And so we need to keep the faith and trust that the more we embody compassion and wakefulness in the world, it's like a tiny little shift in the crystal structure of human nature, or Indra's net, if you like that image. And just like when you want a crystal to have different properties, like for use in iPhones and stuff like that, you seed the crystal with one or two atoms of some other element, and the entire lattice structure of the crystal is different. It's the same with us human beings. When we nurture what's in our hearts and stand up for what we love, it's infectious. And this is the moment to not hold back in that regard, but it's also the moment not to berate yourself and criticize yourself by not doing enough. Just trust your heart that when the doing comes out of being, it will be just the right doing at just the right moment.
Beautiful.
Thank you so
much,
much.
Katya. Katya, please check
Thank
the
you.
chat. There are a lot of people sending you messages, and some of them are linked.
I'm sure. So yes,
Thank
you should read the
you.
chat.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
now
you.
we're going
And
to move. Thank
thank
you,
you.
Katya. We're going to move on to Gary.
Did that person who had to leave ever come back?
She's coming up next
Okay,
after
all right.
Gary.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you, Soren. Wow, I'm just so moved by this call. And speaking of call, I'm feeling called to do something. And I appreciate, John, your perspective of, we can each do something little and then that ripples out. I feel called to attempt to do something kind of big beyond me to help. And I can feel myself trembling a little bit as I'm talking about it. I've been bringing, for the last 35 years, I've been bringing drums into organizations and conference settings to create a sense of unity. And it's called Orchestrating Excellence. And I have a shit ton of drums. And I'd like to raise some funds for Ukraine and Poland. And so part of my story is personal. This is a picture of my parents who lived in Poland on the Ukrainian border. This was after Kristallnacht, This was a picture of them getting married a day before they had to vacate their home and all their possessions and leave. And my parents and my grandmother, my mother's mother, survived in hiding. Two Catholic families hid them for 4 years. Most of my family was wiped out. So this, what's happening right now, has a lot of personal resonance for me. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat. If any of you are moved to help me figure out how to do a series of large-scale events, could be in Golden Gate Park, to raise funds around drumming, coming together for peace. Maybe we can get Jack Kornfield or some other spiritual leaders, John, depending on where you are in the world. So that's my idea. I want to contribute to raising a lot of money and awareness and allowing us. I was very moved by Shelley's beautiful video of that man playing piano. So music really can be a form of resistance and a form of mindfulness and a form of medicine.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm really called my whole life. My last name's Musinski, actually. It's not Muse, but so I feel really called to somehow help. So if any of you have ideas around organization, social media, venues, I'm going to need a lot of help to pull this off. I already have the Remo Drum Company in LA interested in the idea. So
Gary, I'm going to jump in because we just have a little bit of time. We have 3 more people, but what if we continue it in the chat?
Okay.
I think
you.
there's some people who are offering to help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Gary, just to say thank you for that, and deeply moving, and also for the photograph of your parents. And there is just this is part of this migratory history of America itself, and all of it's come out of suffering. All of it's come out of horror, and so that is really something we have to continue to keep in mind.
Thank you, John.
Thanks so much.
Beautiful, beautiful guys. Thank you. We have Louise back. And we only have about 6 minutes, folks.
We can go further as far as I'm concerned, if you want to keep going.
Super.
It's up to you and Soren to decide that.
All right. Thank you, John. Hi, Louise.
Hi there. Am I off mute?
You're
You are
mute.
off mute.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And you're
I'm
not
on
in your
my
car
iPhone
either.
At the moment. I'm just trying to load it on my iMac, but it's not working. So it stays connected. Now, I've got a story I'd like to share with everybody, because I think it will really help some people. You're obviously limited on time. Great. If you can carry on, I can. That would be great. But if I do go on too long, because I love to talk, and I've just...
Well, don't go on too long, because we are concerned with time here.
How long is the story, Louise?
Sorry?
How long is the story? Is it like a 20-minute story or a 1-minute story?
No, I can cut it down and make it 5 minutes, but I'm a real talker, and I'm 2 weeks...
Okay. I don't, unfortunately, is there a way to get to the heart of it without taking too much time? We're going to try and go a little late, but we're just trying to be sensitive of everybody's time.
Of course. Okay, so back in 2000, I'm a single mum, have been since my girls were 9 months old and 26 months old. Life's been tough, but I'm a bit of a free spirit, and I'm an adventurer. Age 21, I went backpacking around the world on my own for 2 years, and I'd still be doing that now had I not run out of money and there wasn't a recession when I came home. But I'll probably do it when I retire, but slightly in more style. Anyway, in 2015, as I say, I'm a bit of a free spirit. I've engaged my girls from a young age in how I am, and they've embraced it and love it. And in 2015, we were in Sharm el Sheikh on holiday. Now, that was when the bomb on the Russian plane blew up the Russian plane. and American and British intelligence found 5 days later, the day we were going home, as we sat at the airport waiting to go home, found that it was a bomb. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It was a bomb. I won't go into the detail as to who did it, all the rest of it. I'll just keep it brief. Now, what came out of that is we got stuck at the airport. It's pretty third world in Egypt, very basic. Security is very, very behind at the airports, etc. Life a bit behind in Egypt, but we had a fabulous time, and the Egyptian people are wonderful, like pretty much every country in the world. There's good and bad all over. So it goes blank on the board, then it says it's cancelled, then it comes back up, then it says it's delayed. People start panicking because that's human nature. You know, people are going on their holiday.
Louise, could you, as we say in the US, cut to the chase, okay?
Sure. Okay, so the story is that we then were stuck in Egypt. There were 4,000. I flew with EasyJet, a small English airline. They had 4,000 customers stuck in Egypt. We went from the first day of people being okay to by the second day in panic mode because there was zero information. And it became only, as I can imagine, like it was in the Second World War. Now, human nature means that people go
John, we're losing her.
I think we should,
yeah.
Louise, we're going to have to stop this because your connection is really not so good at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put it in the chat if you get back on, but it's
we'll move on to Rick.
Strange to be left hanging, but so it is.
Yep, let's go to Rick. Rick, I've just asked you to unmute. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm calling from Florida. John, appreciate your response to Katya about the importance of little things, that doing a little thing may be enough. You know, tikkun olam means repairing the world, but it really refers to small acts of kindness, not huge world-changing things, and that the small acts of kindness that people do mount up to make more major changes in the world. One little thing I think that we can do, that all of us can do, is to reach out to Ukrainian Americans and Ukrainian American businesses, to the people who have either immigrated here either distantly or recently, but also to reach out to Russian Americans, to Russian immigrants. There are people now who are boycotting Russian businesses, they're vandalizing Russian businesses, making a false equivalence between the people who have chosen to leave Russia and come to the United States and be Americans. And I think we need to show our solidarity with them as well. They have nothing to do with this war.
Of course.
And they really need our support.
Agree 100%.
You know, Rick, and it's good to see you again. Do you know, Rick, is there a list of those, or do you think, or is there a list of those you know somewhere, or do you think it's just making inquiries?
Oh, you're muted. Rick, you're muted.
There we go. Okay. No, there's not a list, but I think you can probably Google it and find local businesses. You know, we've hit upon a Ukrainian bakery in Sarasota that we frequent, and you know, we give them as much business as we can. If you know one Ukrainian, you can probably find contacts with others. I posted in the chat a website called Ukraine Takes Shelter that was devised by 2 Harvard undergrads that's designed to match Ukrainian immigrants, people, hopefully recently here and seeking places to live, with people willing to host them. And you can go on that website, UkraineTakesShelter.com, You can post your name and the kind of accommodations you have and the kind of family you're able to take in. Pets, no pets, children, no children, whatever your specifications. And the Ukrainians can go on the same website and look through the listings and find a place to stay, maybe for a few days, maybe for a week, maybe for 6 months, and what people are willing to do.
Wonderful.
So much.
Thank you. If you could post that again in the chat, that would be wonderful. And we
Sure.
have 5 more people. Should we just allow that to roll through?
Yeah, let's just stop at 5 and
Okay,
let's just
perfect.
quickly, so try to be as
Succinct as
sort of
possible.
respectful of the time as possible.
Yes. Okay, Marilyn.
I just unmuted. I'm holding a phone, so I'm not doing the video. I have a question, but I struggle with this. Is there anything we can do as individuals to help? We're not recognized spiritual teachers, but to help people understand that what we experience in the outer world is a reflection of ourselves, to help them realize that we are interconnected. These events keep happening, like pandemic and George Floyd and all that, and you keep thinking, oh, well, more people are going to awaken and they're going to suddenly realize that, goodness, we all have this in ourselves, so we need to do that inner work. But as you've all pointed, we need to do the outer work as well. And you see this reflected in the chat, because when I do these Zoom calls, we're talking to like minds. We're talking to people who are working on enlightenment, who are doing meditation. They're working on improving themselves and understanding better what this is all about. But when you talk to your family, friends, blah, 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 and they're not there, how can we get more people to awaken?
The short answer to that is any way you can. But the best way is to not harangue somebody with the importance of awakening, because then they're going to assume that you are. And the harangue will be evidence that you're not. So the most important thing is to let your being do the talking and let your actions come out of your being. And then everybody will just kind of wonder at how attractive your energy is, and that's infectious. So you don't have to be a spiritual teacher. That's a kind of, in some sense, one strike against you, so to speak. I mean, the important thing is to be a full human being, and you're already that. So it's not something that I would worry about that much. Just trust your intuition.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll go to Barb Anderson. Go ahead and unmute. And if you have-
Well, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing you. Are you
Oh,
on
here.
the phone?
See you. There you are.
Okay.
Okay. My question is very brief. I, like a lot of people around the world, I'm so stressed out by hearing the news about Ukraine. And I think it's carrying over into other relationships that have nothing to do with Ukraine. Any idea how to, get back to my true self somehow and not,
Your true
take it
self
out
has never
on
left
other
you.
people?
Your true self has never left you. So there's no need to get back to it. Maybe more just brushing the dust off it. But the fact of the matter is that every moment has its kind of unique circumstances. So maybe this is something that we're all going to have to go through before we come back to some sense of normal, in the same way as what we went through with the pandemic. But it's just one damn thing after another, so to speak. So the new normal may be a complete, potential for disequilibrium moment by moment by moment. But that's not any different from walking, where walking is actually every step we take is a controlled falling. And then we catch ourselves, and then we move to the next step, and then we move in that way. So you already know how to do that. And the answer to your question, you could incubate it right next to where the source of your question is, because being able to even ask the question means that you know the answer to it, and it's in there somewhere. And let it come out in a way that enlivens the moment, enlivens you. But it's not bad to be caught up in Ukraine at the moment or anything else. It's the awareness that you're caught that's already where the liberation lies.
Beautiful.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Barb. Thank you, John. All right, we're going to go to Ghana. Unmute.
Hi, everyone. Hi, John. Hi,
Hi.
Sir.
Hi.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling.
And this is all okay, just so you know. It's all okay, and there's no hurry.
I'm calling from the Netherlands, and I'm Ukrainian. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for doing this work. And I'm so grateful that the universe showed me at the beginning of a pandemic, the universe showed me that online retreat which you organized with Soren, and I followed all records, because at that time I lived in Australia, and then I became so curious and I started to look for my life purpose. And then the universe showed me the IMBA program, which I'm a part of it, which is Soren and Tammy Simon and LinkedIn doing it. And I'm just so grateful that I can hold this space for Ukrainians and Russians. And I feel I don't have hatred in my heart. And I see how much people are suffering at this moment. And I started to see more clear my purpose on this planet Earth, to bring to this world more love, kindness, because we are one body, as you mentioned earlier. And I'm just so grateful how much I learned from your wisdom. And I keep learning. And yesterday I've got such a great relief when my niece managed to leave Mariupol.
Oh, how wonderful.
And yes, thank you so much for doing this work.
Well, Ghana, thank you so much for sharing your feelings with us, your being, your commitment, your passion. And it may not look that way, but we're crying with you. I mean, we are crying with you. And the whole world, in some senses, is crying and crying out for some kind of relief and sanity, and that this insanity stop.
Yeah, for me, it's also very painful that my parents don't believe me what's happening in Ukraine because of propaganda.
Where do your parents live? They live in
They live in Donbass area, where also
so they believe the Russian story. They don't, and that's true. They don't believe you.
No, I was like so disappointed when my niece, my mom's granddaughter, was escaping Mariupol, and she doesn't believe us.
I can't even imagine how hurtful that is. I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone, that it's almost virtually unimaginable that within families, the propaganda has reached the sort of such a volume that people won't believe their own children.
Yeah, yeah, the first few weeks it was so painful, and then I tried to find the balance, the groundness, that just how to navigate in this devastating time. And yeah, and just because of mindfulness, just because of your wisdom, that was an eye-opener for me when pandemic started and that online retreat. And there was just it's I can't express what I felt at that moment. And I'm just keep being curious where the mindfulness can bring me and what I can do for people.
Yeah, well, we're all curious about that. And, it really is the challenge of a lifetime, but also in some sense, the love affair of a lifetime. Like, what else is there to do but to step into the magnitude of the moment, however horrific it is, and be, as the cliche says, but I think in this case it's real appropriate, be the change that you hope to see in the world. You already are that. And you can't force the world to wake up, but you can let your light shine into the darkness brighter and brighter. And then the darkness has no answer to that. It has to disappear.
Yes.
Especially
yes.
when we do this together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ghana.
Thank you so much, and wishing you all the best in every conceivable way.
And Ghana,
Thank
check
you
the
so
chat.
much.
Check
Thank
the chat, Ghana. There's a lot of love in the chat for you.
There is a caller from Russia. I don't know. You can raise your hand if you want to speak, but there's somebody on the call from Russia now, but I'll let her decide. So we do, I guess we'll just keep moving.
We have three more.
We've got three more.
Jackie
Okay.
and Eva.
Are you okay with that, Soren?
Yeah.
Okay, it seems like this would be the right way to do it. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to honor Ghana's words, especially when she said not feeling hate, because I think it really transformed me and shows kind of the beacon of how much there's still a lot to grow into for me. I'm Vietnamese Canadian. I'm calling from Toronto. I grew up in Russia, in Moscow, until 16. And when I left, Putin was probably in the government as a president already for 3 years. And I remember just kind of when I arrived to the West for the first time and starting to, and I'm an immigrant in Russia. So to kind of realize that Putin is not the good person. And anyway, I just wanted to frame that because in the last 10 years or 10 days, or sorry, even 3 weeks, it was more convenient for me to sit, to be Vietnamese or Canadian, but I chose to kind of sit in this Russianness of mine and face kind of the imperialist mindset that maybe, and to your point, like this richness and beauty and claiming of that. But I think my question is back to is with the word that I've been seeing in the last 2 weeks, and I was hoping if you can elaborate on, which is sovereignty, because we're talking about somehow it's front and center. Can you elaborate on kind of the idea of national sovereignty or collective sovereignty and how it crosses to individual sovereignty?
That's a beautiful question. And I just want to bow to you in some sense. I was thinking, all of us are immigrants, basically. I mean, everybody on the, in the Western hemisphere, we're all immigrants, and many of our grandparents or great-grandparents or parents were refugees, just like the refugees pouring out of Ukraine now. And they were refugees from hell realms, absolute hell realms, unimaginable hell realms that human beings were waging on other people. And I have very, very clear memories of Vietnam. And so, you know, the fact that we all are in this boat together, so to speak, makes a huge difference. It's not that there's one way to be or one way to practice, but we have to recognize that our voice matters, that how we hold the cultures that are flowing through us, that's magnificent. It's beautiful. It's not just genetic, it's profoundly cultural. And the Russian culture, Vietnamese culture, Canadian culture, what a combination. So frame your question to me a little bit more specifically so I can respond in a short time. And just unmute. Can we?
Thank you. Thank you. I think my question is just getting a little bit better understanding or deep understanding of sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yeah. So
I forgot that sovereignty piece. So actually, somebody mentioned a book that my wife and I wrote about mindful parenting quite some time ago, and sovereignty is, we say, is one of the key features of the parents' relationship with children, because children are born who they are. Doesn't matter who you are, the child is born with their own true nature. And so are the parents, they have their own true nature. So when we recognize our own true nature, that is a kind of acknowledgement of a certain kind of sovereignty. Now, that doesn't mean that your sovereignty can overrule everybody else's sovereignty in the family. We have to have respect for each other's sovereignty. But then that becomes a major challenge. How do we let people be fully who they are without them dominating everybody else because they have impulses, say, to, you know, sort of have everything their way all the time? So this is a kind of major challenge. And in fact, the great Vietnamese meditation teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who just died, very short while ago in Hue, spoke about sovereignty himself, which I thought was rather unusual at the time when he did it. But he was basically talking about what he would call in his language Buddha nature. That every human being is born with a kind of intrinsic, luminous Buddha nature or true nature. And our challenge in this lifetime is to find out who we are and to live that rather than some fiction, some narrative about who we are. And the problem is we all have narratives about who we are and what we want and what we hate. And then we get caught in the narrative. And then when we die, maybe at the last moments, we'll wake up and realize we got it all wrong, that the narrative wasn't who we were, but we believed it the whole time. So part of the challenge of meditative awareness is to see the narratives, but be the seer and knower of the narrative and realize you're much, much bigger and more beautiful than any narrative, whether it's a terrible narrative about how horrible you are or a wonderful narrative about how you're the greatest thing that ever hit the planet. All of that is just, nonsense. But the true you, the sovereignty that the word is pointing to, that's beyond measure beautiful. And it's our, in some sense, karmic assignment to open to the possibility of recognizing and embodying that sovereignty, not as an act, but as a true expression of our nature. Does that help at all?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anne.
Once you unmute, we have to unmute yourself. It's a little strange. All right.
Let's move on to Jackie. And then Eva, you'll be our final question. Thank you.
Okay, hi.
Hi
Hello.
there.
Hi. I just spoke to you on the map of love,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
am back.
Nice
I
to
am
see you
back with
again.
you now. Thank you for being here. I would like to say one thing very quickly. The beautiful people who came and said they were Russian and were feeling guilty, God bless them, never to feel that way. My background, my heritage is from Syria, and much has been said about now Syrian people or Syria being evil. And I just want to say it's the leader and not the people. They have suffered as well. It's a devastation to see people suffer and take on the guilt of the leaders of their country, even as we have in this country with our previous leader. We need to remember that we are whole within ourselves, and we are not represented by our leaders. And I think that's what this beautiful man in Ukraine is trying to tell us when we see him and hear him from his soul. He is Ukrainian, but he is such a human being. So to always remember who we are. Thank you, John, for reminding us and touching our souls every time you speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
you,
Deep
Jackie.
bow to you.
Thank you, Jackie. And now we'll move on to Eva, our final.
Yeah, hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, anyway, I can't see anybody. It's dark, so I speak into
okay.
the dark. Maybe it suits
I
to
can
the.
see you.
Yeah,
we can
okay.
see you.
Suits to the situation. Yeah, I want to share shortly something about a very brave woman, a friend of mine. She is in Kiev at the moment, and she is there because her mother is sick and they can't move. And so she is still there and has to keep being brave. And we are in contact very often, and she sends news, and she is also in broadcasts and tell the people at the moment in Germany, because it's very difficult to report at the moment. So she tells very brave about the situation in Kiev, and I all the time think, what can I do for her? But I'm here, I'm safe, and I'm so very grateful for that. But she now starts to tell that they get anxiety and panic attacks during the night when they are bombed and so on. So my question is, maybe you might have some words for her to, staying in this storm's eye and being, I don't know what to say, but maybe you have words. Thank you.
It sounds like you do actually know, and you should trust that because you're her friend. So that's much more important than anything that I would say. Sometimes it's just the mere presence and the knowing of the connection. That's the most important thing. When someone's being bombed, it's not really the best time to teach them how to meditate. In fact, it would be a travesty to do anything like that. So the most important thing is always the connection, friendship, the love. So the more you can stay in touch with her, and if you do get to, whether it's by text messaging or anything else, stay in touch, let her know what you've been a part of, and that there's, just millions and millions of people who are wishing her well and wishing her whole country well and doing whatever it is that we can on every conceivable level to bring this horror to an end, this nightmare to an end. And that she should also, if she has internet and can look on social media, I mean, there are mindfulness teachers in Ukraine teaching in Ukrainian. So why, find that, or at least look for it. And maybe it will be a comfort at night. Maybe it will be too much to deal with at this particular moment in time. But the most important thing is the connection of friendship and her knowing that you're there for her, even though you're in Germany.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
So thank you. So Soren, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's that time. Thank you everyone for attending and coming. Annie, thank you for your support in making this happen.
My pleasure.
John, it's always just such a pleasure to be with you in this unfolding of what's happening in the world and what's happening in our inner worlds and what's happening in the external worlds. And just a deep bow to you for who you are and for holding the space and for just the depth of your practice and your commitment. So thank you so much for just sharing in this space with us.
Of course, Soren, we're in this together. Actually, we're all in this together.
All
It's a big
together.
mystery.
Yeah, and we will send out an email with some of the suggestions that Shelley gave and other people gave of groups. So we'll look forward to that. We'll be sending that out. And again, deep bows to everybody. So let me change it so that people can actually unmute themselves. So if you want to unmute yourself.
And put yourself in the gallery view.
Put yourself, yeah. So you should be able to unmute yourself now, and just blessings and vows. And
Obrigada.
gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the best for everybody.
Obrigada, John. Obrigada, Annie.
Excellent.
Dankjewel.
Dankjewel.
Christina. Hi, Christina.
Thank you so
much.
Thank
you.
Give a blessing to your
Thank
family. Tot gauw. Bye bye.
Um abraço, Diana.
Diana, Adriana. Bye bye.